Hi, I am Jennifer Purcell, and welcome to my podcast, Living with an Invisible Learning Challenge, where we will discuss, discover, and learn more about the challenges and triumphs of those with NLD and other learning challenges. I do have a website for this podcast, and it is called livingwithnld.com. I also have a Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter account for the podcast. They are all under the same name, which is Living with NLD. I also have a YouTube channel for the podcast, which can be found by Googling the title of the podcast, which is Living with an Invisible Learning Challenge. I would like to tell you about a nonprofit that I use for my research for this podcast. It is called the NVLD Project, and I use their blog for my research. They are a nonprofit that is based in New York and is trying to get NVLD back on the DSM, and they provide many resources for people with NVLD on their website. I'll provide you with the website for them in the podcast description. All proceeds from the ads on this podcast will be donated towards the NVLD project. Please feel free to explore the other topics on the podcast, and hopefully you will learn something new from them. I hope you enjoy today's episodes. I also want to mention to you that I just launched my podcast swag on Wednesday of this week and have a page for it on my website, and I will also send you the link to it in the podcast description, and I will also send it to you in the newsletter that I usually send out on Fridays. I am now selling t-shirts, water bottles, and a backpack, and they all have the podcast logo and title on it and the tagline. So I am looking forward to watching the sales and seeing who buys them, and spreading the word more about my podcast. Good morning, and I hope you are enjoying the new podcasts that I created, which, again, if you haven't heard of them, one of them is called Shiro, Be Your Own Hero, and that one was about heroism and inspiring yourself to be your own hero in your life instead of trying to look for others to be your hero or mentors. And then the second one is called Think Out for Your Imagination, and that one is about the imagination I had when I was growing up and how I imagined that I could fold up my house into pocket size and take it with me wherever I wanted. And then the next one is Chats, Barks, and Growls, Combos with Your Pet. That one is probably the most fun one because I get to do my voice. And I get to do Truffle's voice. And just, tell you what I think dogs think throughout the day and what they think about their owners. So that one's fun for me. Happy Friday. So today's interview will be with Eileen, and it is the second part to her interview. And as a refresher for you, Eileen is a project social ambassador for the NVLD project, which I am too. And what an ambassador does for the NVLD project, they write blogs for them about their experiences with NVLD, and they also help promote the NVLD project by having fundraisers for them and promoting their events that they do and the research that they do. And while we're on the topic of fundraisers, I have a fundraiser for the NVLD project that I started recently in celebration of my birthday coming up in April, and in celebration of wanting to donate to the NVLD project and help them keep their research going and the good work that they do and the support that they provide for families with individuals who had NVLD, and also that they have a support group for those individuals. It's called Inspire. And I hope that you enjoyed the interview with Eileen and me, and I will provide a link again for her bio that is on the ambassador page. And I will also provide a link to the fundraiser so that if you want to donate, you can. And if you're not able to, I completely can understand that and empathize with that. What you can do instead is you can go to the Unveiled Project website and be able to read more about them and pass that information on to others as well. And that's another way of supporting them if you can't do it financially. So I hope that you have a good weekend and that you are able to enjoy some time off. And there was one more thing I wanted to mention to you guys. I have my very first supporter for this podcast from the audience. Yay. Um, and I wanted to thank her for setting up a contribution for this podcast. I hope that she did it as a recur. I'm not able to tell if it was recur or one-time support, but I want to thank her that she set it up and that she took the time and energy to do that, and that she thought about doing it and followed through with it. So thank you. And I hope that I am able to get some more supporters as well from the audience. Those mean more to me than having a sponsor from BetterHelp. I appreciate that they're willing to sponsor the podcast, but it's a little different when it comes from the audience because you guys listen to the podcast and you're the ones I'm hoping that are able to get some lessons and some help from this. And while I was talking about BetterHelp, they do sponsor the podcast, and I hope that you are able to use BetterHelp for therapy if you feel like that is something you need, and you can use it to work through many things that you might be going through in life. Speaking from personal experience, I have been in therapy for 7 or 8 years. I'm losing track. And it has definitely changed my life and helped me feel more empowered and more authentically myself, and has helped me work through a lot of things that I've gone through. And I'm still doing it because there's still some things I have to work through. Not that I have to, but I'm choosing to. And yeah, I hope that BetterHelp is a way for you to do that. It's remote therapy, so it's on your time and when you are available, and of course when your therapist is available. But they make it easy for you to switch therapists if needed. And I also know that they can offer financial support in terms of making it easier for you to pay for your appointments. So, and they help like thousands of people all across the world. I don't think they're international, but they help a lot of people in the US. I know that. And yeah, so I hope you enjoy the interview today with Eileen. Try to respond to things more quickly. It sounds like your family tries to help you with your challenges. Is that true?
Yes, I always have been involved in everything. Like I've never been in my high school had an English and social studies class for just LD students. I was never in that program. My mom knew how to advocate for me and said she can do the work. It may take a little longer, but life in general isn't easy. I'd rather her be faced with challenges now, but having a full support at home rather than leaving at 18 and all of a sudden you haven't been challenged enough or playing it safe and things become confusing. And then as a little kid, I played sports from the time I was 4 years old to graduate in high school. My sister was typically developed, like quite gifted, and a pretty good athlete. And my mom was always like, first of all, she's 4 years old. Many 4-year-olds can't play soccer. They're not really ready. They kick the ball. I'm not coaching one daughter and having another at home. And it just, we always made, like I left soccer pretty early on and ended up choosing swimming lessons at a local college because it was more individualized. I knew by the age of 10, like most of the people that was still playing were at least halfway decent without really good. It wasn't like Little League anymore where everyone would just care where the ball was.
Mm-hmm.
And I stayed with basketball until I was in 6th grade. And that's kind of when I joined track in 7th grade. And honestly, like the track, like I can give my mom credit because being involved is really important to our family. But honestly, the two Penny show who I mentioned throughout this was the coach. He said, have you ever thought about having track and field as a give it a try? The indoor season, the modifier is not on his own. I can place her with a nice varsity member to be a role model. So like I don't think she'll get made fun of, but you never know how teenagers can be. And a good role model can prevent difficult situations.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up joining the team, and there was another girl on the team that like a different type of seizure disorder, like she was so good at. Hers was in a different part of the brain, but she was a good support because like if something did happen, like other kids, so she was able to talk to the younger kids about seizures. And then I ended up sitting with her daughter on the bus. Her daughter was a strong, real great person too, like Penny was. And she was just one of those juniors, like you knew that she wasn't gonna put up any crap, and I was always gonna be taken care of. And gradually, like, so that was that, like that started out really well. And then in 8th grade, like I started role models, but in 8th grade, you've been in middle school for 2 to 3 years. You kind of want to find your own way. And
Yeah.
and I did. And in the process, there were a few bumps in the road. There were a few kids that did stupid things, and I followed them. I didn't know at the time, but I guess I can say it, being the NLD kid, having social issues, slow processing speed, because I thought they were my friends. And I quickly, in mid-season, I learned that they weren't. But rather than calling my mom and saying she can't be on the team, she has too many. So we had a close call, and she was right. If she had done that, she said, I think Eileen needs to go back to hanging out with the varsity members. This isn't a put down to the other kids. This isn't a put down to her. Like, she's not a troublemaker, but the equals I have on the modified level, unfortunately, are they're immature. And what happened tonight, I don't want it to happen again, because I don't think this is the real Eileen. I think she was trying to fit in. Our varsity team was small, so a lot of they weren't the good role models, like were better athletes, probably because they were happier with themselves. Many of them had moved up to varsity, and I even had more confident in themselves, had moved up to varsity, and I was nowhere near ready. Like Penny wasn't going towards that, but she was like, I think we need to go back, because I was sitting with upperclassmen in case something happens today, because the behavior in the locker room was inexcusable. And when she did have a seizure, her teammates didn't even want to tell me. They were more concerned about getting into trouble. Like thankfully Eileen was smart enough and yelled like what was going on. And my daughter overheard and said, don't yell at Eileen. She wants your help. Like this group of girls did something horrible to her. And we moved in situations like that do happen with any disability, as any learning, but especially ones that cause social issues, because it's a lot. You can't tell if they're teasing or they truly want to be fun.
Yeah, I can.
Sometimes, with especially for something like NLD, was still not classified. So many kids don't get the social training in school like they would during the ABA program for autism. And like and it's one of those, and it's one of those things why I feel like parents so worried, and I understand, like, and I try to advocate. I get it that it's been a difficult but a rewarding process too. But I do believe from the coaches that I met, from even as a management, like it was cool I couldn't do varsity, but they were supported. But especially like from Patty and Diane, that there was a kid who was showing up every day and was working 100%, and they gave you all the intention in the world. And in situations like this happened, they didn't automatically assume that it automatically punished, assume that it was a need for a punishment. For kids like me, they used it as a teaching tool, and they guided you into a different direction. And if the behavior didn't improve, then they may say to the parents, I'm sorry, like this just isn't working out. I have 40 kids on my team. Like I need kids to behave well. This, like, I really want this to work, but your daughter or son isn't able to look at me. So like she can have fun in the process, and the other kids in the process can receive the attention that they need from me too, because like the coaches want to be there every minute for you, but they have at least, they have at least 15 athletes, sometimes more, to care for too.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I can relate to the social things you were talking about as well, with being made fun of. I was in a Girl Scout troop growing up, and we were at a concert, and I was dancing, and I didn't know that they were making fun of my dancing by laughing and pointing at me. I thought that I wasn't really aware of what they were doing. And once I didn't really care. I just kept dancing because I was having fun. But yeah, you're right. It is challenging with the social piece, and trying to know how to react in those situations, and being able to understand when they're joking or making fun of you, because with NLD it's hard to understand sarcasm, so of course that's a challenge. I was going to ask, for you, are there any strengths that you feel like you have because of having NLD? Like, are you good at memorizing things, or good with auditory memory?
I would say my biggest strengths are my attention to detail. I'm really I'm really attentive, like even the smallest thing, making sure I have my cutter, my cutter card, my house keys, just like I check, because I know you can get scattered at NLD, like EDD. And then I would say another strength would be my determination, which is why I believe that I was able to be an athlete, because regardless of the situation, and whether it was something simple like a horrible run, like everyone, regardless of how slow or how fast, has off days, or the situation doing something really really stupid, but I was always able to bounce back and be determined to be a better person. And I think another thing is a strength of mine is my honesty, because there's one thing I don't like, none of us do, I'm sure, is being underestimated. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about inclusion in sports, because despite popular belief, coaches love the most determined athlete. And it doesn't matter if they finish last every meet. Like that was me as an athlete. Some races were closest to other. But like if there was an open door policy at your school, that means a student at NLG or anyone else who may struggle in athletics has the opportunity to have the determination and the courage to be successful. And I think right now we forget that because we tend to hear more about hockey, basketball, football, and those sports are a totally different ball game. And I'm not saying that kids at NLD can't play basketball. Like that's certainly not true. But many people do have gross and social skill, gross motor and social skills deficits. So that makes sports like that a challenge. And because coaches are cut in many cases, are cutting other athletes, they have every right to cut you if you don't qualify. Like in some cases, you might have a case they're not giving you a chance. But most of the time, I feel coaches are very fair. And if they cut someone with an NLD or another disability, most of them are very kind and tell you that they can tell you want to participate. And they ask you to be, would you like to be a scorekeeper? Would you like to be a team manager? And why would that may not be your first choice? Because it's more partial inclusion. For many kids, it's better because you're with it. It's a sport, especially if you love the sport. Like I love that. I could still watch basketball to this day, but I love connecting with people too. So for me, and it really helped that in our district, I know it's not the same anymore in the bigger districts, it's definitely not the same. Our district at the time, our coaches were teachers. So my Penny and Diane, Penny, my track coach, had me in school since 6th grade. So the time I had, so like she already had a year of me in the class. And then in high school, and she became my full-time coach. Like that cross country was different, but she coached varsity spring too. Like modified with separate for spring. Like she knew like if the laziness or the behavior was teenage difficulties, like stupid behavior, or if it's something that I couldn't really overcome on my own. Like she knew how to give me to stay determined, to have the courage to do the best. And Diane, the assistant coach for indoor, was a resource room teacher. So obviously she was able to read like, no, this is, Eileen doesn't know that she's screwing up. Oh no, Eileen has more enough intelligence. She's just trying to fit in. I mean, this deserves a punishment. Like she knew how one for each situation. And I think that's something like we don't hear a lot of the individual support of sports just because they're not on mainstream media or on TV as much for great reasons. So many parents and resource room teachers feel like the children with a disability can't be NLD and not or can't be in a sport, which I may be biased because my coaches were great to me. But I will say when I ran track, like my mom ended up coaching later on as Penny's assistant. The amount of people that came up to her about how wonderful her daughter was more than she had ever heard before. Like not that people didn't like me. I'm not saying that. Like people liked me a lot. I was highly determined, dedicated to whatever task I needed to do. But the people on the track saw something different. Like, wow, your daughter's really intelligent. She knows how to overcome every obstacle. She knows how to support people. She never gets jealous that someone's faster than her. And in each race that she does, she gives a congratulation hug, like to the winner, which is common. Like she got the social crew and the sport like running. You support each other. Like I just wish I just wish she wasn't the only one, because there are a lot of kids with a disability like hers that cause ghosts more in social skills that could be in a sport like track, because it's so individualized and people really look out for each other.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense to me. I think for me, I would definitely agree with the determination as well. I'm really determined in improving in things like athletics as well, and being able to, like you were saying, tackle a lot of challenges and being able to prove that I can do something that other people think I might not be able to because of having an LD, and being able to, for me, I'm very creative, and I'm also very good at details and being able to remember stories or things with audio involved pretty well. Do you, a different topic, but for other people who have an LD or a learning disability, is there something that you wish the world would know more about that area or understand better?
I think the one I wish to understand that kids at NLD do want to make friends. And I'm not saying that people with autism don't. That's not true. But I feel like depending on what form of autism you have, people are comfortable in being in their own little world per se. Like I don't know if that's the correct term, but people at NLD have enough intellectual and social skills. For every deficit, they have a number of strengths too, for different forms of those things. So they kind of look around and like, how come they can look around and be like, how come other kids with learning disabilities have friends? How come other kids with learning disabilities may be able to be in a club or be on sports teams? But it's hard to, and it's hard for them to understand, because a reading disability, it's just reading and attention. You have a higher chance of being musically talented and being a star basketball player. Not that kids with NLD can't do that. There's plenty of success stories, but for someone who is like me, that has all four general characteristics, it's harder for them to understand. And I think if more adults understood, there would be more encouragement to increase to like help them develop appropriate social skills. Like now I have a number of friends that, considering what I went through, like before going to, and then before joining sports, honestly, like I mean most of my friends via running. The three best friends that I have from high school are all three former runners. And like, I don't want to brag, because I had amazing teachers. They did whatever my family said. My mom was a highly regarded special education teacher. So it helps me out a great deal. But what you're saying, for having a more understand, Penny was able to understand everything better than anyone else. What my mom was saying about, she can make friends. She just needs to be taught and be with people that would have a little more patience. And Penny did that for me, because she guided me in the right direction. She told me to join cross country. You would get to meet runners that are dedicated runners, and they understand the sport from all types of talent. and then you run all 3 seasons with them, and eventually through determination and sportsmanship, eventually they do become your friends. And I was fortunate that I listened to her advice, and it was the best thing that ever happened always, because now I had a great group of friends and I was running whatever event she needs me to do rather than being an exhibition sprinter, which was fine, but you have a different mentality when you're only exhibition. You feel like an extra body and you can't really connect with people. And that being said, I think more people need to understand that they learn social skills. They know how to be social. They have to be taught. Whether it's taught via working closely, more individualized with a speech therapist or a counselor, or something more enjoyable of the kids, like becoming part of the school music program, for example, always includes a lot of super nice kids. Like, I'm just a big believer in sports because sports have always been a part of me, and it turned out that my biggest NLD supporter of mine through the process was Penny Sherrill and Jim Adams and Diane Janelle. But I'm also realistic because I was involved in service clubs, volunteering at the Boys and Girls Clubs, church groups during my younger years. Like, there are other ways to gain social skills, but for the NLD student, it can be hard to join. It can be hard to join these things because they're not sure how. Many of them are not sure how to begin the process, especially as a younger kid. It's harder to do, and there's more understanding. I do believe that classroom teachers, school counselors, and resource room teachers will work together in more school groups, and whether it's service club or sports, so these kids can learn how to be the great friend that they want to be, and hopefully like being in the area that interests them too.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to what you were saying about the social area of wanting to make friends, because like you were saying, even though when you have NLD, you have social challenges that, you still want to make friends because you want to be able to, you want to be able to have people to enjoy doing things with, and being able to connect with in life. Is there ever a moment that you wish you didn't have NLD?
Probably in the moment I wish I didn't have NLD. Like, it's one of the things of having a mom, being a special education teacher. Like, at first I was like, why me? But my mom had I also knew that kids still were a great success. But I would say probably the one time that I truly wish I didn't have an NLD was probably my junior year. Probably my senior year rather, at cross country meet. I had just ran a horrible race, even for me, and I had spent a lot of time, and I didn't think I was getting better, but I actually was getting better through determination. But it was harder to see because I was still in the bottom of the pack. I was still last. And probably so that moment I said to myself, I'm giving up running. I can't run. I'm so sick of having an NLD. I wish it wasn't like this way. And a neighborhood coach who happened to work with my dad at his school came up to me and said, I can't believe what I'm hearing. You have always been like the most determined, and you just have great acceptance what life has given to you. Like, why are you saying this now? Like, you're a senior. Like, if you had said this 2 years ago, I would have accepted it. But why give up now? It's your senior year. And truthfully, he said, I know for a fact that Penny Sherrill would miss her flexible, dependable distance runner, because even though you're not the start, you're still automatic 4 points, meaning that I ran 3 to 4 races and got 2 to 1 points for each race, because I was driven to do whatever. Like, I knew she was giving me the opportunity, but being a senior and not I knew I was never gonna be a fast runner. Like, you just don't go from the bottom to the top.
Yeah.
But I hit the frustration, like I still can't get to the middle after a hard work. Like, all I'm doing is basically is improving my time each week. And then, like, I shared my frustration like all kids do. My mom read me, like, she crossed off the name and said, I want you to read this report. This is a student that's 10 years older than you, and you won't remember him anyway, but I'm going to keep that kids in NLG can only gain so many that do have gross motor deficits. They also have poor muscle tone too in most cases. So they have to work extra hard for endurance. And they're prone to anxiety. And that can affect sports too, because you never see people of our community are conscious that you're slower. But thankfully, the coach overheard. It was a fun. John Cass, so amazing person. Like, Penny Show caught me at school and said, I hope this isn't true. And I didn't give up. I went back to enjoying like the friends that I had made and doing my best every week. Like, there was some rocky periods too, because the seizures had came back, which I also had understood that I had to factor that in too. Because when you had a bad seizure, you couldn't, often the doctors didn't want you to run for a couple of days to play it safe. And it's like in academics. If you don't use something, you lose skills. And
Right.
that was basically, like, I never, like, adding with that, like, it was hard for me to have like a straightforward routine. And the other thing was NLG could also cause real fatigue too, because the changes to the school day is overwhelming, like knowing what direction to go, keeping up with notes in the classroom. So by the time I got to the meets, I was exhausted. Just not like I was still able to run, but like you could see that I fatigue quicker than a neurotypical child.
Yeah, I can relate to what you were saying with being frustrated with challenges. And I think for me, when I was in college and I was having a hard time academically and emotionally, it was like a nightmare for me when I was in college, because for the first 2 years I didn't have any accommodations because I didn't have the testing done until I was a junior and a sophomore, but towards the end of that year. And once I had my accommodations for junior and senior year, it was a lot easier. But I still had to work really hard to do well in my classes. And it was. As I wrap up, there are some things I would like to share with you. I do have a website for this podcast. It is called livingwithnld.com. I also have a Facebook and Instagram page for this podcast. It is called Living with NLD. I will include the links for those in the description. In conclusion, I would like to hear from my audience. If you know individuals with NLD that I could interview for this podcast, please email me at livingwithnld@gmail.com. What are you interested in learning about NLD? I know I'm not an expert, but I do know I have the living experience of having it. I would like you to practice journaling about your gifts and differences. Also see if there is a way that you can make that difference become easier for you to do than it originally was. Thank you for listening today, and please go to my YouTube channel and subscribe to it. Thank you. Bye.